want the recording going for the introductions, George. Thank you. Joan is back. Great. Well, welcome, everyone. I see someone I don't recognize. Marlene.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Marlene Moores. I'm a part of the Global African Sheroes Union, and I will be representing in the interests of the global African women at the Permanent Forum of People of African Descent in the Geneva, Switzerland in April.
So, how did you hear about our meeting, Marlene?
I'm a Shero. I'm out of the Cleveland, Ohio chapter. I'm a part of the Global Sheroes Union. Kim Poole is our founder.
Oh, I
and
see.
President.
Well, that says it all when you say Kim Poole. Kim Poole is one of our newest members of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. And what we really want to do, Marlene, is we want to start the Cleveland branch of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. And I will actually be traveling to Cleveland in May. So please drop your information in the chat so that I can contact you about my plans to be in Cleveland in May, because we're putting together a panel, and you should definitely be on the panel, and I'll explain a little bit more about it. It's the UN Reparations, UN Decade Reparations No Tornado Tour of the Midwest, with stops in Cleveland, Detroit, Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, and Chicago. So Cleveland will likely be our first stop. Well, thank you and welcome. Glad you're here.
I'm currently in Ethiopia, so I kind of wanted to give a disclaimer. I'm currently in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I am a birth worker, so I'm here for a birth. Sometimes the electricity goes out, sometimes the Wi-Fi is good. So if I drop out, this is probably the problem. Also, I was a part of the leadership team for Cleveland Reparations, so I will definitely be interested in assisting with that as well.
Well, we're going to accept that as Marlene having introduced herself. So let's go around to others. We'll go to Joan Goddard, and then Gloria Macmillan, then Philip Cole, then me and George. So Joan, please introduce yourself. The check-in is branch, roles, and one good thing. And Marlene told us a bunch of good things, but if you could just tell one good thing, Joan, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I'm Joan Goddard in the San Jose, California branch, and and I sent very recently an email which has some very comprehensive information nationally and also local California, and so that's my good news. I sent
thank you so much,
people
Joan.
who got the notice about this meeting.
Thank you, Joan.
So Elena, I'll send it to you too.
Okay, Gloria.
Hi, I'm Gloria McMillan. I'm in three things, actually. I'm in the communications, culture, the arts, and sensitization new interest group, which cuts across a lot of issues. I'm also in the Chicago branch of Wealth Restart Group, but where I'm physically located is Tucson, and I'm in the Tucson branch. So figure those out. But anyway, things are going well. A little bit rocky with the Tucson branch that will not have any hybrids, so I don't go to their meetings because I've got too much going on. They just don't do it, but I think they're going to bend on that. So we're hoping for progress there. Inclusivity. The other ones are moving along. We're having our third Zoom for the Chicago Restart Group, and that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. So we'll go to Philip Cole, then George, and then I'll introduce myself. Philip Cole, please.
My name is Philip Cole. I am a member of the San Francisco branch, and I am currently occupying the at-large position on the board of directors. And the one good thing is that it's not raining today. First time in weeks. Thank you.
Wow. Does it rain a lot in San Francisco?
Technically, it rains as much in San Francisco as Seattle. So it's
wow. It rains a lot in Seattle. I've been there. Well, George, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm George Friday. I'm in the Southern Piedmont branch in North Carolina. I'm responsible for organizing and building that branch. I'm also the program committee chair for WILF US. And my one good thing you see here is a photo of 17-year-old George, a long time ago, that a friend sent me this week that just brings back lots of memories of 17-year-old George in high school. So that's my one good thing is friends that remember me and go, I ran across this, remember?
Wow, absolutely. Gorgeous, George. I kept thinking that was Stacy's picture.
All right, well.
But that's you when you were young.
Yep. Decades
Well, great,
ago.
George. Thanks for sharing that. Well, I'll introduce myself. I'm Teresa Alameen, and I'm with the Fannie Lou Hamer branch, which is in Columbus, Georgia. I'm the branch organizer. I'm also the advancing. Please don't talk while I'm talking, Gloria. Mute yourself.
Sorry.
I am co-chair of the Advancing Human Rights Committee. And Marlene, this is a working group meeting of advancing human rights, and it's called the UN Decade Reparations Working Group. And what we're trying to do is support ordinances being passed in cities and states for reparations in this final year of the UN decade, which started in January of 2015, and it will go until the end of this year. But there is talk at the UN level, as you probably know, about setting up another decade because very little has been accomplished on the question and the theme of recognition, justice, and development for people of African descent worldwide. So, George, at this point, we want to put up the Black Liberation Caucus 3-year strategy chart. Since January of 2022, several of us have been meeting around the goals of, George, if you could just move it a little bit more so I could read the goals a little bit. Okay, great. So we set goals to be achieved by December of this year, 2024, and we started developing and adjusting those goals from January of 2022, Marlene. So Gloria and everyone in WILF is familiar with this chart because we have shared it widely. It's a 3-year strategy. So our first thing, which really impacts this working group, is work on reparations ordinances. We initially were ambitious enough to say 20 cities, and we adjusted it to 10 branch cities during this decade, UN decade reparations. And so we're going to be getting reports from everyone on this, but we want to make sure that there are no questions about this strategic objective. And as you see, we have other goals where we would sign up 300 members over the 3-year period, about 100 members a year. And I think we've gotten pretty close to that, but we will know by the end of this year if we met that goal. And the final goal was 20 initially, and then we switched it to 9 branches were participating in an anti-racism transformation kind of project. And that's up to George Friday to try to revive that goal, because nothing has been done on it in the 2+ years that we've had that goal. So George, if you could just move the thing over to the strategic objectives so I can read those a little bit more, because move to the left, because see, yeah, keep moving. Just move, not enlarge, move to the other side. Because see,
this is as far left as it goes. It goes this way, it goes that way. That's it.
Well, it was far enough a moment ago, because I'm trying to read the strategic objectives, and the gallery shot of everybody is blocking me. So could you read the strategic objectives, George?
Sure. Confirm that all branches have at least 10 active paid-up members. The WILF US board is BIPOC majority. No branch has less than 3 BIPOC members. WILF US participation in global efforts to end NATO increases. WILF US participates in WILF international triennial discussions beginning in November.
Marlene or anyone, do you have any questions about this strategy that was started by a caucus, which we call the Black Liberation Caucus, Marlene, and it includes all Black, Indigenous, people of color who are members of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom in the U.S. section. We have been a very low number until recently in terms of active participation in the U.S. section of WILF. By the way, there are 52 sections around the world, and about 18 of them are actually in Africa. So Marlene, what city, what country did you say you're in Africa, Marlene?
I'm currently in Ethiopia.
I do not think that there's a section in Ethiopia. So when will you be back to the United States, Marlene?
I return on March 29th.
Okay, good. So you'll be in Cleveland during May.
Depends on what part of May. I have plans to perhaps go to Senegal after May 18th, but those plans are not yet confirmed.
Oh, okay. Well, good, George. Thanks. So we're at the point where we want to do state reports. So George, if you could take down the agenda. Because we want to give up to 5 minutes. So California, you have 2 people here, so you have 5 minutes for your state report. And what I was doing in the last few days is Googling what ordinances have been passed in Georgia. So when I give my state report, I'll tell my findings about that. And so I asked George to do that earlier. I know there's a lot going on in California, so we're glad that you're both here. So if you could do a 3-2 thing or a 2.5 thing, but please, both of you report. And since you're on camera and smiling, Joan, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I jumped the gun a little bit because I mentioned the email that I sent, and I have now sent it to Marlene also, with the article, 2 articles, and plus references to more articles at around the end of February in Yes magazine, and one of those articles was specifically about California. I think Philip may have, as usual, some more information. So I hope that you're able to unmute Philip, because I know if you're driving, that may be difficult to participate as much as you want to, but we hope that you can. And I do not have anything more other than that our local group down here in the southern end of the San Francisco Bay Area is having sort of not regularly scheduled meetings, but it's a group that's sponsored by the African American Community Services Agency, and has a lot of people. And so we're working, that group is working on the county level. And then there are also, as Philip can tell you, there are other groups around the state, including San Francisco.
Oh, thank you. Go right ahead, Philip. And George, if you could help with the
good.
time.
He's unmuted. Yay.
Oh, well, you can mute yourself, Joan.
Yes.
Philip, if you could go ahead with the remaining minutes.
Well, the one thing that I have to add is that the only activity that has been engaged by the city and county of San Francisco is that last week they issued an official apology to descendants of the victims of slavery in the United States that reside in San Francisco, California, which issuing an apology is basically a one step forward, and that is about it.
Well, thank you. That's interesting. We want to go to Arizona, which we should have done first because my plan was kind of do alpha order, but by state. So, Gloria, do you have anything to report about reparations in Tucson, Phoenix, or anywhere?
No, I don't really. We were taking it up at the Tucson branch, but it would have to come from Emily, who actually shows up in person, since I'm not doing that. But they don't seem to be doing anything on it. I do get updates, and it has been raised, and I think now it will need to be continually raised with them to get them to do anything. That's all I have.
Well, good. Well, I'll get up with what's your friend's name? The Black woman who's with the NAACP.
I can get that information from Emily. They just met today.
No. I'm talking about your friend, the Black woman you introduced me to.
Forward the information to you from Emily.
No, I'm just asking you for the name of the person
Emily,
that you and I convinced to join WILF.
The one that I convinced to join WILF is Emily Ricketts. I've known her for 40 years.
Oh, I didn't realize that she was the Emily you were talking about.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
So in person.
Huh?
She attends in person.
Well, that's good to know that she's really participating. Glad to hear it. And no, I'll probably give her a call.
The other branch will allow hybrids. I'm very encouraging them to allow hybrids, because this takes out everybody who is not fully able to hear. It takes out older people who cannot drive. This is a very cruel city. If you don't drive, you're out of WILF here if you don't drive. So there are problems here in communications.
Well, I do have Emily's number because we chatted a few times, and it'll be a good excuse to call her. Thank you so much for that report, Gloria. Yep. Well, what we're going to do now, I'm going to do the Georgia report, and then we'll hear from George in North Carolina. And Marlene, we're giving people like 5 minutes because we have a good amount of time for this meeting, because several people I was expecting to speak did not show up. And then Gloria did not take her 5 minutes. So George, could you begin timing me now? And if you could let me know when I'm at the 2-minute warning. Well, in the state of Georgia, there is a lot of activity around reparations. Much to my surprised. I did know about Decatur, Georgia, and DeKalb County, which years ago was pretty much an all-white county. But Atlanta has generated a transformation in Georgia because it's like a magnet. So people, when they retire from the plants up north in Detroit, Chicago, New York, they move to Atlanta. And because Atlanta is so expensive to live, people are moving into the outlying areas that used to be Newt Gingrich country in Gwinnett County. No Black people ever lived there. Now you go there and it looks like everybody's Black. Same with DeKalb County. And what I was really surprised at is that in Athens, Georgia, which is where the flagship university campus is for the University of Georgia, they have an Athens-Clarke County reparations ordinance for a couple of years. In Fulton County, which is the Atlanta area, it's the county seat. Atlanta, of Fulton County, is where all of the state houses and all of the state apparatus is in Atlanta, in Fulton County. They voted $250,000 for a study group to study reparations for Fulton County. And the woman who's heading it up, she spoke last year at the second anniversary of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch in Columbus. And she's a professor at Morehouse College, which is one of the premier HBCUs in the country, where lots of famous people attended. And so she's heading up that task force. And so they have like a year. I think they're supposed to produce something by October of this year. So they're steady working. DeKalb County is looking at doing a reparations ordinance. And in my place where I live and where I'll be buried, Columbus, Georgia started doing slavery in 1828. There was actually a slave block where it's reported that the city actually sold slaves and bought slaves itself downtown at the corner of Broadway and 10th. Thank you, George. And so what I have tied our plans for reparations ordinance about land and housing is tied to the bicentennial, which is going to happen in 2028. So it's basically like a 5-year plan of community discussions that will be taking place over these election cycles. Like we have municipal elections in 2024, 2026, and 2028. Right now, there are only 3 Black members on city council out of 10. We're getting ready to transform that. There's never been a Black mayor in Columbus, but Columbus is over 50% Black. So we're getting ready to work on a number of strategic objectives and transformation so that we can win housing justice. Columbus owns a lot of land. They have a 2038 plan, which is about developing all the land that's undeveloped. And so we're going to be developing some of that land for affordable housing as part of the reparations push. And I've already put the mayor and city council on notice that that's the plan. Thank you, George. That's time for me. So Marlene, no, we were going to George, and then we'll go to Marlene. So what's happening in North Carolina, George?
In North Carolina, there have been reparations policies or ordinances in 3 cities and 2 counties: Asheville, Durham, and Carrboro, and Buncombe County, which is where Asheville is, Orange County, which is Durham, and Chapel Hill and Carrboro. None of the resolutions include direct payment. there is a community reparations commission that meets every month in Asheville. And their goal is to increase homeownership, business, and career opportunities. That's it for me.
Well, let me just say this. I lived in Durham for many years, and a very small part of Durham is in Orange County. But Durham is Durham County and Durham, the city of Durham. So in the city of Durham, there you can pass anything. I was so bored with it, I moved to Columbus for a challenge, and I got what I asked for. But the city of Durham, I know, is looking at reparations seriously, and everything the city does, the county does, because a founding member of the Southern Anti-Racism Network is now the head of the county commission, Brenda Howerton. And so it's a Black mayor in Durham. So I will be in Durham at some point over the next few months, and I can find out more. But Buncombe County, Asheville, was one of the first places to pass reparations ordinance about the same time as Evanston, Illinois. So that ordinance is available online, and we have used it as an example, George. Go ahead, George, because you didn't take your whole 5 minutes and I'm taking it.
Thank you so much. I wanted to also point out that in Asheville, they've set aside 2.1 million, and in Durham, they've set aside 6 million. I left that out.
That's important to know, because I know you can get anything in Durham. So the 6 million doesn't surprise me, but there's a bunch of people in Durham saying it's not enough. So Marlene, would you just please tell us about your work overall? And you have 5 minutes. So George will give you a 2-minute one, because what you were starting to tell us about the UN, just explain to us what you do and why you're in Ethiopia and why you're traveling through Africa. We just need to know more about you, since I'm counting on you to rebuild the Cleveland branch. Ha ha. So please unmute yourself, Marlene, and tell us all about your work.
Okay, thank you all. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I thank you for all the hard work that you guys have put in for these efforts. I am the president and CEO of the Black Birth Collective. I'm a member of the Global African Sheroes Group, as well as I'm a former member, the leadership team for the Cleveland Reparations Now Cleveland branch that kind of dissolved after COVID, but we did a lot of work in Cleveland for reparations as well. I'm currently in Ethiopia now because I am a midwife student and doula. And so I was asked to attend a birth here. 2 years ago, we raised funds to bring supplies here as well as to help to start a maternity clinic, which is actually now pretty much a full blown health center. And so I'm here now training doulas and training the midwives with spinning babies, which is how to position the fetal, help the mother with the fetal positioning to help to decrease cesareans and peripherally mortality rates here. And so that's essentially what I've done the past few years. I'm pretty well traveled. I've been to 28 countries. Most have been because of Semester at Sea, which is a study abroad program in college I did, and we circumnavigated the earth. We started in Ensenada, Mexico, and came back through Miami, Florida. And so we poured into 11 countries there. But since then, I've taken my work as a birth worker to the continent, and has brought in several supplies. One of my goals is to raise money for a container to get to Senegal to help with some of the centers there. And we will be going to Switzerland, Geneva. The Shiros will be going there in April to hopefully speak on behalf of African descendants of African descent. There, I think that's April 16th, Geneva, Switzerland. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. There's so much. I pretty much have to say at a
Well, let
time. I'm
me,
traveling to Kenya on Sunday for another birth. So yes,
well,
ma'am.
let me ask you a question, Marlene. How do you know Kim Poole?
This is a funny story. So I attended Oral Roberts University after attending Bethune-Cookman College. And one of our mutual friends introduced us in Baltimore, probably back in 2009, 10 or something like that. And then maybe 2 years ago, a friend of mine in Cleveland mentioned, she was like, you do a lot of things globally. I think you will be a great Shiros. And so she introduced me to the group. And then Kim welcomed me, and I was like, wow, I had her number still saved on my phone. So I was like, is this Kim from Baltimore? And she was like, oh yeah, so we kind of knew each other through a mutual friend and have gotten closer since then because of Shiro's group
Well, that
that
sounds
she's
great.
founded.
Because Kim, with the Teaching Artists Institute, Thai, she and I are going to be doing quite a few things together. She's like young, and I was just so happy when she joined the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom on February 19th, because we immediately went to a meeting that was planning for the Commission on the Status of Women, which is going to be starting in a few days. As a matter of fact, on March 11th is when it starts. So there'll be several members of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom who will be in New York for that important annual event. And Kim Poole will be there along with others. And so I guess you won't be able to be there this month because it ends on the 22nd of March and you'll still be in Ethiopia. But I do plan to travel with Kim to Africa in the fall. You know, the Pan-African Congress, the 9th Pan-African Congress is scheduled to be in Togo around October. And Kim also has some other things going on in Africa around then. So I'm looking to save my money and spend about a month in Africa around that time because it'll be my first trip to Africa. So I want to learn a lot from you and Kim and be prepared because I do like my creature comforts. I want to be in a hotel. I don't want to be in any roughing it thing. So I'm looking forward to being in Africa in the fall. We're at the point of our agenda where we're open for announcements. And I really appreciate the fact that we will end before 3 because it's a busy time for me. My first announcement is that the Fannie Lou Hamer branch of Wilf, based here in Columbus, Georgia, we're celebrating our 3rd anniversary tomorrow on International Women's Day. And it's with a special dinner event where we're inviting all the elected women in Muskogee County. And there are 16 elected women, the Solicitor General, the Tax Commissioner, 8 women on the school board out of 9 seats. It is really historic. We have 4 women on city council, and we have 2 state representatives. So I believe that's 16 women. elected to office, and they're all invited. And several of them have said they could come. A couple sent their regrets, but we're also having quite a few nonprofit women. And we're saluting an organization called Girls Inc., which is the COO is one, Danita Gibson Lloyd, who is a member of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch. And so she's so excited about being able to celebrate the 3rd anniversary and to also bring some of the girls from Girls Inc. So the event is for women and girls only. And our community partner at Ed Southern Cooking, they make the best baked chicken and dressing and mac and cheese and all of that. So we're going to be able to get dinner, and they're allowing to get us to have dinner and a drink for just $12, which is very affordable. And then Sam's Club, because I had a problem with reaching them on the phone, the head of the bakery said they would donate the cake. So the cake will say International Women's Day, March 8, 2024. Let's celebrate, let's collaborate. Girls Inc. and Fannie Lou Hamer branch, Wilf US. That's going to be on the cake. And the colors for International Women's Day are purple, green, and white. So the cake is going to be decorated with a splash of red and blue thrown in. So it's going to be nice. And one of our members of the Southern Anti-Racism Network, who is a graphics artist, is doing the artwork for the cake, which Sam's Club just say, send it to us and we'll make it look exactly as you send it. And so that's my good news in terms of an upcoming announcement. And so any other announcements? Well,
oh, I have an announcement. I couldn't get my hand up. I was all muted.
Go ahead, Gloria.
Yeah, not much is happening, as I said, on the Tucson front, but it's entirely different on the Chicago front. We're planning our next Zoom, and that will be with Reverend Zenobia and Reverend Tony Bianchi and others. We're going to bring in people telling their own stories, because a big part of the effectiveness of Hull House in breaking down barriers of race and class had to do with stories that people brought in. And I'm all excited about that. So, you know, I can't win them all, but maybe things will get better in Tucson as well.
When is the Chicago event?
Oh, we haven't set the date yet, but we're thinking of the last week in April or early May, because you know, Mary Beth Gardam, she has a big monetary reform event in Chicago called Money Madness, you know, overcoming the Federal Reserve, getting rid of it, whatever. And that happens on the 11th. They're going to have a big parade and a march in Chicago. She's going in person for the 11th. So we're having ours before that so we can promote that event.
Are you talking about the 11th of March or the 11th of April?
I say March, May. 11th of May is this big monetary event. So ours would be the last week. Our Zoom for Wilf in Chicago will be the last week of April and into the 1st of May, whatever we come up with. It'll be a Saturday, the last Saturday in April or the first one in May. And then we'll have the two themes. One is storytelling and the other is the Money Madness event. You know, the overturning or eliminating the thing that they're doing on the 11th. It's a different group. It's Mary Beth Gardam's Women, Money, and Democracy thing. And she's coming in, so she wants to involve the people in the Chicago restart also.
Well, I do want to talk with you about Fannie Rushing, who is in Chicago, and she needs to be a part of that, because we do want to deal with the DEI, the diversity, equity, inclusion, and Fannie Rushing can really help with that.
I have written her to no avail.
Well, I'm glad you told me, because I will talk to her. She's really crazy busy. And of course, with this being Women's History Month, all the women academics are extremely busy. But I will get up with her because we're trying to do part 2 of SNCC Women Speak, based on the question that Tara asked about how women and sexual assault, etc., happened back in the movement and how we challenged it back in the day. And so we've been talking about that, some of us older SNCC vets, about what happened to you and what do you remember and blah, blah, blah. So you remember being at the SNCC Women Speak, that Tara brought up that huge question at the end. So it's generated a bit of discussion in my circle of SNCC vets about how could we handle it and how could we answer the question. So what we need to do before we end is pick a date for our next meeting. And we've been kind of flexible, but we try to do Thursdays. And so, Joan, if you could really be clear about looking at your April calendar, and if everybody else could look at their April calendars. Oh, Philip has his hand up. What's up, Philip?
Well, in celebration of Women's History Month, I would like to say this. Mao Zedong once said that women hold up half the sky. And after listening to the last 2 minutes, I believe that that is true. Thank you.
Well, it's totally true. And frankly, in some cases, I feel like we're holding up the whole sky by ourselves sometimes, because we're dealing with so much misogyny around us, with men being uncooperative with women's leadership. And, it's just really sad the way the misogyny and patriarchy has gone off the charts in recent years, given certain political leaders. So we're looking at 3 possible Thursdays, and I'm available all of them. I'd like to avoid the 11th, but because there's it's not until 6:30 in the evening. So if we do 3 p.m. on a Thursday, I'm available the 11th, the 18th, or the 25th. So what's your preference? Does anyone have a preference? Because I'm open to all 3 dates.
I can't do the 25th. This is Gloria.
Okay, well, we'll knock that one off. So it's the 11th or the 18th. Are you okay with both, Joan? Because I have absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, good, because I have absolutely 0 on my calendar for the 18th. And on the 11th, I got Zoom at 8:30, doctor's appointment at 10, something at 6:30. And then I have on my calendar, the one Wolf call is on the 11th that night. Does anybody know if that's true? The one Wolf call at 7 p.m. I even got the Zoom link. So let's go with the 18th, and we'll do 3 p.m. in the afternoon, which would be 12 p.m. on the left coast side. So on the west coast side, it'll be 12 p.m. on Thursday the 18th. George, you got us? Did we lose George? George?
No, I'm here. You can't lose me.
Okay.
So the 11th at 3 p.m.
No, George. It's the 18th.
The 18th, sorry. At 3 and 1 and 2, 3.
Actually,
I don't know what you're talking about, George.
I'm
It's
trying to
at
get all the
3
times
p.m.
right. Noon.
No,
for the
it's
Pacific,
3 p.m. Eastern
3
time.
p.m. Eastern, 2 Central, 1
And
Mountain,
it's 12 p.m.
Pacific. Got it. That's it.
Oh,
Yeah.
So, George, can I correct that? After the time shift, we're at the same time as Pacific. In April, through the whole summer, we're the same.
Mountain and Pacific will be at noon.
Yes,
Okay, very
yes.
good.
Okay, and George, there's a question from Marlene about the recording being sent, and usually you do. Is that likely?
Yes, I'll send the recording to everyone who registered and everyone on the Advancing
Cool.
Human Rights list. It'll probably be tomorrow morning. Sometimes it's late at night.
George,
Yes.
Marlene, I don't know that you actually registered. Did you register, Marlene?
How else would she be on?
You wouldn't be here unless she registered.
Oh, okay. Because when I asked you for all the registrations, George, you never mentioned Marlene.
No, ma'am.
At
So
that
that's
point,
No,
why
ma'am.
Marlene had not yet registered.
I'm sorry,
Huh?
ma'am. I did not. Yes, no, I have not registered. Kim posted this in our group for someone to come in so that we can update and be a part of it. So I
That
did.
was what I thought happened, Joan and George, that she got the information from Kim, who did register.
Then her
Yes.
name would say
So,
Kim Poole.
George,
I
George,
can send you my email, or I placed it in the group.
you already placed it in the chat, Marlene.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get my dear sister George. She knows the struggle that we go through about not making mistakes. So if you could make sure that Marlene, with her email and her contact information.
Yes, I see it. And I'm looking at Marlene's registration right now. She registered at 3:02 today. So it's got your
Okay.
info. Groovy.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Well,
Kim-
dear
Kim
George.
must have done that for me. She's so kind.
Well, we figured out the mystery of the Marlene registration. Since Marlene is pretty sure she didn't do it herself. So we know the mystery, George. So George, if you could be sure to save the chat and
Always.
the recording as you always do,
Yep.
and we will get it all, because for some reason I can no longer save the chat. So I really appreciate that you saved that and you send it out with the recording. And I really want to thank everyone for allowing us to end 8 minutes early, so we could get on with our day, because I have much to do before our big celebration tomorrow. I got to get the programs done and printed and blah, blah, blah. So thanks again, everyone. And I will call up a few of the people that I know, like Alan Haber, and find out why he didn't make it from Michigan, because there's a lot going on in Michigan. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, George. Have a
Thanks,
good
everyone.
afternoon. Goodbye.
Have a great event tomorrow, Teresa. I'll be thinking about you. All right, y'all.
Yes.
Oh, I'll
Blessing.
take lots of pictures. I'll take lots of pictures.
Love
Great.
and blessings.
Thank you.
To
Bye.
join.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Happy birthday, Marlene.
Happy birthday.
Oh, is it her birthday?
No, she's helping someone give birth.
Oh,
That's what I meant by birthday. She's
Okay.
a doula.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Happy birthday.
Love it.
Oh, I get it.
Birthday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.